Good morning, and sometimes it's time to just take note of the fact that one is living in possibly the world's most beautiful place. Inhale deeply as the dawn breaks on the eastern horizon and take a load off, as they say in sort of modern parlance, I think. You are most welcome on our morning safari with Brian on camera. Hello, Brian.
Hello, James.
Very nice to have you with me again. And me, James Hendry, and I am just relaxing here on the dashboard as the dawn breaks. The sun is threatening to peep up over the eastern horizon. It is an absolutely stunningly magnificent morning here on the northeast corner of South Africa. You are on a live safari, which means we'd like to hear from you over the course of the next 3 hours. I've told you my name already. You can talk to us on Twitter, #SafariLive, or questions at WildEarthTV if you want to talk to us on the email. Also out today will be Stefan the Mystic Winterboer, and he'll be out on foot with Willem Dorenbrak, who will be carrying a very large pack, roughly the same size as his good self. In the final control, Rebecca is talking to me in my ear, and Luis is tapping away at the keys and receiving your questions via Twitter and email. So that's generally the lay of the land this morning. Our plan is to head right into that rising sun, or that reddening horizon, towards Cheetah Plains, Terra Incognito to the east, and see if we can't find Inkanyeni, the leopardess that dear Samwise Gamgee managed to find on the far eastern boundary where the Kruger National Park joins the Sabi Sands yesterday evening. What a wonderful experience that was for him and for all of you. Right, I shall now attempt to adopt some form of professional stance, and we'll go into the wilderness and see what we can find. The last few days, I've also tangled myself up, of course, in wires. The last few days have been pretty sort of dull in the mornings. There have been lots of cloud about. I don't mean in terms of sightings. And today is very different. Today there isn't a cloud in the sky, which means it is a little bit chilly. It's 15 degrees Celsius, 69 degrees Fahrenheit. I've got a little blankie for my leggies. You see that, Brian?
I do.
This is my blankie.
I'm sad I don't have one.
Yeah, I know. But you didn't want one, Brian, because you said everybody sits on the other blankets and that makes them distasteful. Quite with reason. Alrighty then. Here we go. The first thing we'll do is stop next to these impalas, because one should stop for impalas at least once a day, for they are very magnificent and oft overlooked. You don't need the lights on anymore. And just listen, what's quite nice about this time of the day is that you can really hear the kind of start of the dawn chorus. And the major bird that you can hear at the moment, apart from the doves, which are ubiquitous, is the grey-headed sparrow, going choop choop, choop choop, choop choop. I'm just watching some impala behind us running past. Go ahead. Good morning. Sorry, I'm just on the radio, everybody. This is fantastic news. Fantastic news. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. We'll pick it up from you later. We don't need it this morning. Thanks so much, Chris. We've lost a we lost a fuel cap the other day. No updates, Chris. Now that oxpecker's up very early. Oh, this is just wonderful, isn't it? So peaceful. And I'm sure these impala are extremely happy to have made it through the night, because they are, of course, on the menu for just about every single predator out here. And you can see with that new camera of ours, the way the hair is standing up slightly. They trap air underneath the hair and makes them a bit warmer. A bit like that bird is fluffing his feathers out. In fact, exactly like that. She's a really pretty impala, not that any of them are particularly distasteful to look at. You hear how it's starting to get slightly louder. More and more doves are waking up. Lots of little sparrows calling from everywhere where there's a tree hole that they can nest in. It is too delightful. Right, so just in case you're wondering, on the radio we're in contact with lots of other game drives during the course of the day, so I will be required every so often to excuse myself and speak upon this thing. If it is relevant to what we're going to see, then I'll just flick a little switch here, and then you can hear what whoever it is has to say. It was Chris who's driving out of Vuyatela, just down here. That's part of Djuma, and he managed to find the fuel cap that I think I drove off with yesterday while it was on the seat, and it fell off onto the road while we were chasing the wild dogs yesterday morning. Let us continue and see what we can see. X-Ranger, you say you hope I didn't roll over onto Sam's elephant on the dashboard here. Everybody, Sam put an elephant on the dashboard, and it's a sort of good luck charm. It seems to have disappeared. Not really, it's a different car. It's still on Wendy, everybody. This is Rusty, and we're on Rusty so that we can go off towards Cheetah Plains. While I answer Nate's question, you can hear a grey-headed sparrow, and this is one of the first calls of the morning. He's in this deep thicket somewhere. You can't see him, can you, Brian? He calls every morning, and I've never seen him. Nate, you want to know how fast those antelope can run. Nate, they can probably run at about 45 miles an hour, which is pretty quick. About 60 kilometers per hour. He's in there somewhere. Alrighty, let's carry on. Steph will be out on foot fairly soon because it's a lovely light day already, and that will be wonderful to discover the little things that he manages to find. He has an absolutely astounding ability to spot tiny little things in the bush, and it'll be just the best in this kind of morning light. So like I say, our plan is to go towards Cheetah Plains. I suppose what we'll do first is just do a little foray down the southern end of Djuma and see if Karula hasn't finished her impala and come back. I think today or maybe tomorrow she'll come back, or certainly finish her kill. She may then go deeper south, of course, but I hope that she comes further north. She's right on the southern end of her territory where she is now, and that is just to the south of us on a little reserve called Little Gowrie. And we can't drive there, of course, unfortunately. But it is the territory of her daughter Tundi, and I'm hoping that Tundi will tell her mum that, the good times are over and that she needs to come back here with her two offspring. Chilly now, going down into the dips, and that's a big change, of course, in the seasons. When we head in summertime, it doesn't seem to make much difference. The ridge crests and the dips like this seem to be exactly the same temperature. Whereas at this time of year, you can hear and you can feel an incredible thermocline. So it's pretty warm up top, probably about, maybe 15 or 16 or 17 degrees Celsius. And now as we go down here, I think it's probably dropped about 4 degrees, maybe 3 or 4 degrees. Which is not unpleasant at all, I just think it's really interesting. Remember that it doesn't ever get that cold here. The coldest it gets is about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. No, a little bit colder than that. Probably about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, about 4 degrees Celsius. That was the coldest we had last year. I remember sitting on Treehouse Dam wall, rubbing my hands together. In fact, I think somebody had very kindly given me some gloves. And I was wearing those gloves. And of course, for most of you in the northern hemisphere, the thought of 4 degrees making you cold is laughable. But out here, we're just not very brave with the cold. Oh, very fresh smells. A little bit of dew coming off the grass as the morning starts to break. There's just a little bit more heat in the air than there was half an hour ago. So the aromatic oils that live in many of the plants out here will start to lift a little bit off the surface of the leaves, and that touches the air with a sort of spicy or herby scent as we drive along through the dew. With any luck, fairly soon we will see the sun coming up. But it's quite chilly on the ears, is it not, Brian? Brian's putting on gloves, everyone. He does obviously need his fingers to be functioning, otherwise your picture will go deeply out of focus and you'll be looking at everything from a great distance. We'll go to the next junction and then have a listen to what else the Dawn Chorus has to offer us. And then we'll head down towards the Umlulwati drainage line where Karula has had her kill. For those of you who don't know, perhaps new viewers, Karula, a 12-year-old female leopard who's provided the bulk of our viewing, or provides much of the female leopard viewing that we have. And she's got 2 little cubs who turn 3 months old in, it'll be on the 2nd of May. Maybe we should head down this road. Into the rising sun. There's some woodpeckers up here. Let me go back a bit. Can you see them? Should I stop? Ooh, look at that. That's an incredible shot. Not woodpeckers. Kingfishers. Very nice. Brown-hooded kingfishers, everyone. They don't often sit like this. They normally sit in the fairly deep bush. That's a brown-hooded kingfisher, the most common kingfisher of the winter. In the summer, of course, we're inundated with the woodland kingfisher. Chipper! That's a good start. And just over to the right-hand side, the drongos. Let's just roll down this road. There they are, silhouetted against the rising light. Ooh. A few of them flying around there. Of course, the smaller the creature is, the more impossible it is to track with the camera, and the more seasick you will get as the attempt to track it is made. There they go, diving down, hawking the new insects of the morning. Then, Brian, did you see that thing fly? No, let me go forward. I just caught it out the corner of my eye. I think it's an oriole in the left-hand side of this bush, basically directly over the aerial now. Can you see what I mean? So, yeah, a little bit left. Left, that's left again. Keep going, left, 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 left. A bit more. Keep going. He's down there. Yeah, that's exactly where he was there. I think he's moved. You can see that branch waving there. He's gone. There was an oriole there, everybody. They just very seldom sit still for us. Oh, and there's an arrow-marked babbler. That's brilliant. There's a whole flock of them in there. Fantastic. Lots of different calls going. There's some bulbuls calling. There's a scimitar that's just landed in the knobthorn tree above us. And that will start calling soon. That's him there. Brilliant, Brian. He'll be gleaning leaves. Or that might be a woodpecker actually in there. Or that... What is that? It's a blackbird. It's not a woodpecker. I think it is the scimitar. There's a whole bird party going on here. It's wonderful. No doubt there's some starlings there. And way in the background I can hear a bearded woodpecker going tap, 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 tap. I'm always amazed at how they're able to hop around in a tree like that. You know, the thorns are so sharp and nasty in that tree that you couldn't rub your hands over the leaves without sort of tearing the flesh off your hand. But these birds just hop around as if there's nothing in there, jumping sort of their own body height regularly. I think it's most impressive. Anyway, they're all rather silhouetted against the lightening eastern sky. So let's move on and see if we can't find some others that are being front lit so you can see their colors. Rebecca, are you still there? Just checking that she hasn't fallen asleep, everyone. Let's see. She hasn't fallen asleep. That's a relief. Now, you can see the sky changing color every minute. It turns a new shade of blazing red. Let's just get down through into this area. Right, while we head down towards where Karula was in the Imlalwati drainage line, Stefan Winterboer is on foot and ready to receive you.
Well, good morning, and have a look at that. There's always just something magical about a sunrise and watching a sunrise. I've always found it, and I mean, I'm being in the industry that we're in, I've seen hundreds of sunrises, if not thousands of sunrises, and that always gives you this most unbelievable sense of expectation for me. The fact that it builds up in color until what I like to describe as being almost an impossible yellow, and that's fast approaching at the moment. Good morning, I am Stefan Winterboer, and you are with myself and VM on the bushwalk this morning. And we are standing on top of quarantine clearings only because we wanted to watch this most beautiful of sunrises. There's a little bit of cloud that we can just see coming up. It's just being outlined at least by the sun, and the sun should crack that horizon now. As you can see, that impossible yellow is starting and it'll build to a gold color. I'm busy looking at the screen just to see what VM is actually busy filming over here, and you can see that nimbus coming up. There we go. There it comes. Yes, and Meg's in California has echoed what I feel. We can't wait to find what we're going to see today. Look at that sun coming up there. The sun, of course, has already risen above the horizon. The light that we're seeing coming through the screen at you now is already 8 minutes old. That's how far away the sun is from us. The sun is well above the horizon. And of course, we are racing on planet Earth towards that sun of ours at this latitude, probably around about 1,400 kilometers an hour. So just under 1,000 miles an hour is the speed that we are racing towards the sun, causing it to rise up above the horizon like that. Sun, of course, our closest star, and what makes all life possible here. One of the aspects, one of the foundations that makes all life possible here. Now this morning, myself and VM have decided that we are going to walk a point to point. We're not going to be doing a circular route, which is usually what we do. We are going to be walking from where we are now and seeing how far north and west we can get. So aiming directly for Cheetah Plains from where we are now, and we're going to make a beeline for as far as what we can get. I definitely know we're going to get sidetracked by a lot of different things. A, because that's just how things happen on a bushwalk, and B, is there's so much to see between here and there. We've got the drainage line, a massive drainage line to cross, and we have got a couple of hills. But basically, let me show you the route we're going to pick, see if we can get it for you through those trees there, Via. You can see we're going to be following a series of valleys. There we go. And we're aiming for the horizon. That is just to give you an idea of how far we do move on these bushwalks. But standing here talking about it's not going to show you anything new, and it's definitely not going to get us any closer to that horizon. So come along, let's carry on going. Now, quarantine clearings, of course, is absolutely, well, what we're going to do is, I'm sure it's going to be boring to watch us walking and to stare at my back, so we're going to send you through to James, who I'm sure has got something very interesting or informative to know, entertaining to tell you, and we'll catch up with you when we're on the other side of these clearings.
Hello everybody, a little bit of confusion there. Just wanted to quickly show you the vacated Wahlberg's eagle's nest, and this is where the Wahlberg's eagle couple, the chocolate brown one and the pale white one, live. Sorry, we've got a small problem here with the camera. Let me move back a bit. Does that help at all? There we go. No? Kind of. We can't move the camera. There we go, Brian.
Thank you.
There we go. So that's the Wahlberg's eagle's nest. The Wahlberg eagles, of course, have gone up into sub-Saharan tropical Africa for the course of the winter. And they are having spring there now. And the place we're sitting in here is probably the place that is lowest down on Djuma, and therefore the coldest. And I think it's at least 4 degrees colder than it was up on quarantine. I was just saying to Brian that I too might have to get some gloves to cover my little handies for the course of the winter time. We all, of course, in South Africa forget that we have a winter. As soon as August hits, we assume that it's always hot here. We have what I call winter amnesia. We should get a view of the golden orb rising out of the east from twin dams, where with any luck Karula will be grooming her children on the dam wall. I know that's highly unlikely, but it's possible. Here we are at the dam. We're just going past an impala which was supposed to sit still for us, but he's run away. Jared, you want to know what Inkanyeni means and how old she is. So Inkanyeni, everybody, is the female leopard that Sam found yesterday on Cheetah Plains, and she's quite famous in this region. I actually don't know how old she is, so I'm going to ask one of our leopard experts to send it through her age. I think she's about 8, if I'm not mistaken. I may well be mistaken, but Inkanyeni means, Gukanya means to light up, so Inkanyeni basically means light. It's quite a nice word, really. And she comes from a long line, I think, of golden leopards that stretch back to romantically named Campbell Koppie's female of Mala Mala, and there have been a number of them around here. She was related, if I'm not mistaken, to Kwatile, who was recently deceased, possibly at the fangs of a snake, off to the west of where we are now. And they're very different colors from Karula's line, which tend to be a sort of more pale lemon yellow, and it's a really interesting sort of color difference that they have. Thank you, Jared, for that. Yeah, I'm not sure of her age. She's got that typical 4-4, or not typical, but she's got a 4-4 spot pattern, and so that's makes her pretty recognizable. And those are the spots just above the whisker line. Oh, she's 11 actually. Thank you, Final Control. Alright, now we're on the main southern boundary, so we're going to check for tracks of the leopardess Karula coming back this way with her little ones. But she did kill a fully grown male impala just inside here the other day, and I suspect that that's going to last her probably 3 days. She's been in here 2 days now, and I think that that kill will probably last her about 3 days. So she'll be in and around this area, inside Little Gowrie, which is to the right hand side of your screen, probably for another day or so. We'll just stop down here. I'm going to go up a little bit so that Brian's got the maximum spread on the bottom of the drainage line there. Now, Brian, basically I think if you just follow the line of the drainage, basically where that corner is, everybody, is where the leopardess was, up in a tree to the right hand side. But I thought maybe we'd be lucky enough to see her lurking on the sand there. She's literally just round the corner, or she was yesterday and the day before. It would be amazing if we could view her at this distance. But she's not there at the moment. I'm sure she's still enjoying her meal. She might pop across a bit later. In the meantime, let us head across to Cheetah Plains and see if we can find Nkanyeni of the light. Nate, again, thank you for your question. How long will those little cubs stay with their mother? Well, at the moment, I think there's one male and one female. Steph thinks it might be 2 males. There's definitely at least 1 male. And they are slightly different sizes. So my guess is 1 male, 1 female. I think Brent agrees with me, but we're not 100% sure at this stage. And that makes a huge difference as to how long they will stay with their mothers. The males, like a human mother, like humans, tend to become independent a little bit later than the females. They like to hang around with their mothers until they're about 18 months to 2 years old. And then they go off on their own. And the females can be independent from as early as 9 months, much more likely to be around a year to 14 months. But they have certainly been recorded in this area as going independent as early as 8 months. But I think that's exceptional. And Chris Rogue is also looking forward to seeing Quarantine at Cheetah Plains. Quarantine, of course, is now, what is he? He's 3 years in December. So he's January, February, March, April. 3 years and 4 months old. And he has been spending a lot of time around 3 in a row pan on Cheetah Plains. So we're very lucky we'll find him lurking there. Maybe we'll have 2 leopards on Cheetah Plains, some cheetah and some ostrich. And maybe the Birmingham boys. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah,
do you like that?
It's a good menu.
Yes, it's a good menu. All right, we're going to drop a gear and move a bit quicker so that we can get to Cheetah Plains before you lose too much signal. Let's head across to Steph and see what he's found.
As you can see, we are walking into the sun. We were alerted to some animals by the sound of those oxpeckers. And also heard of kudu. They still don't know we're here. I think just one of the kudu saw us. Come a little bit. So obviously, alarm calls from things like oxpeckers you have to take very seriously. Kudu Kudu are moving off through the bush. Now this time of the year, you sometimes not have male kudu that are with these female kudu. I just see a young male. We had actually thought that it was some buffalo, but it ended up being some kudu. It's not bad, it's quite nice to see kudu. Obviously they saw or heard us coming down the road. We must have sounded like a bunch of elephants to them with their big trumpet-shaped ears, and didn't allow us to get too close before you joined us, but nevertheless, we got to see them, and at least we got to find out what those oxpeckers were making their noise at. Like I said, you've got to take things like that quite seriously when you're out here. You want to cultivate an inquisitive mind as to the alarm calls of animals or the distress calls of animals. Have a look here, Vim. We have some butterflies that are roosting. Now, butterfly wings, apart from being there for display and for more visual keys and to butterflies' life, they frighten off each other with them, they scare predators with them. They also act as solar panels, and they will then orientate themselves to the sun early in the morning. The sun's rays will heat up the fluid in the wings. That fluid will go into the bodies of the insects and allow butterflies then to have a much better thermoregulation, and therefore their ability to react to temperature changes. Most insects are very sensitive to temperature changes. Butterflies are no exception, but one of the ways that they deal with this is through having a massive wing surface area. And that's what you're busy having a look at the moment. Isn't that beautiful? Now, admittedly, Brent and James are much better at identifying butterflies than what I am. What happens out here is that seasonally you get good at doing different things. So seasonally you get good at doing birds or butterflies or moths or insects or plants or flowers, whatever's good that season. And then during winter, when all of these insects disappear, you lose that knowledge. And the last time I did any meaningful study into butterflies was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and hence the knowledge sloughs out of my brain like water off the proverbial duck's back. I'm not known for having the world's best memory. But anyway, those butterflies, as you can see, not flitting around. The height of the butterfly activity around here seems to be between about 11 and 1 o'clock. And then when all other insects are getting too hot, well, not all other insects, when most other insects are confined to the shade, butterflies have an almost exclusive access to the flowers that they go and pollinate. And that's one of the reasons, not all the reasons, why butterflies have these massive, beautiful, large wings. I'm sure Sam will tell you in months to come, there's a science in the world called biomimicry. And the scales on the wings of the butterfly are like little mirrors. They are refractive, and they're also shaped the most unbelievable natural shapes, all faceted. And what that helps the butterfly do is to reflect and refract sunlight around the wing quite effectively, making use of that surface area. But what it also does is it allows us to study the shapes of those facets. And I know that in the cosmetics industry, the shape of the butterfly's wing scales is now used in the powder that ladies put on their faces. I'm not too sure I think it's called blush, the colored powder you put on to make it a bit more shiny and a bit more sparkly. So I've got Rebecca going blush, eyeshadow and all that in my ear. As you can see, it's not something that I know too much about. I suppose I could do with a bit of forehead powder to get rid of the glare though, really. Alright, let's carry on going. And Jamie one has picked up on a fact that I said that the butterfly was roosting, and yes, as far as I understand that's the correct term when you see that butterflies are sitting down. Usually it's when butterflies are sitting down on a flower, but in this particular case I used it because that butterfly was sitting on that flower's stem after a night in the cold. So roosting, yeah, it's not something that's more like a chicken, but anything can roost, I suppose. And Frank has asked a nice question because of the fact that butterflies come from caterpillars. As we might know, butterflies come from caterpillars. Caterpillars eat plants, and sometimes, and in a lot of cases, the toxic elements in a plant are absorbed by the caterpillar and then transferred into chemical warfare weapons in butterflies. A lot of butterflies are actually quite toxic or acrid tasting. Now, the flash coloration of the butterfly's wing, those very bold colors on a butterfly's wing, are there to say to predators, potential predators, I am not good to eat, I don't taste well. In the case of the African monarch or the monarch butterflies, as we all know, they feed on milkweeds, or their caterpillars feed on milkweeds and can be very toxic. So most butterflies are not eaten by everything. You would expect them just to be eaten by all manner of things. But very few birds eat or are able to eat or distinguish between the toxic and the non-toxic butterflies. You do find butterflies fed on by a number of mongoose will eat butterflies, civets will eat butterflies, and then of course your insect predators, spiders will eat butterflies, and a bunch of beetles will eat butterflies. But generally they're not fed on by diurnal predators at all. You'd expect birds to just be plucking them out of the sky all the time, but that's not the case. And it's because of their caterpillars that feed on toxic plants and then transfer that toxin into the butterfly after metamorphosis has taken place. A nice question there, Frank. Kathy in Tennessee has noticed my flash coloration on my arm, although I must be honest, my shirt is becoming whiter and whiter the more I wash it. That armband, Kathy, is not to indicate a certain level of guarding that I have. The armband that I wear is for anti-poaching patrols. So the Sabi Sands has... BM's just heard an alarm call. Alright, we've got Kudu or Nyala giving an alarm call just in front of us here. And let's just listen for a little bit more. It was just 2 barks, smaller bark. Now the reason why I'm taking my time to listen is that if it was a leopard or a lion, those barks would be much more frantic. Just 2 barks doesn't mean that there's no leopard there, to be honest with you. It just means that those particular animals are not being hunted by anything, which will make finding them a little bit more difficult. So I think let's go through here. Kathy, I will pick up the answer to your question in a bit. They're not too far away. Those barks are like 100 meters away from here. So let's go there, go see what's there before it moves on. Perhaps we're lucky we find some lion. All right. We are not too far from the camp, in actual fact. We're probably we're on Twin Dams Road, which is quite close to the camp. So for those of you who can listen to the dam cam, you probably heard those barks. Alright. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. It is fairly open here. What I'm doing is I'm keeping my eye open underneath bushes for any sign of a cat. That bark that those kudu or nyala were giving, they give when they are alarmed, usually at cats. Okay, we've got the nyala. So it was Nyala, not Kudu. We've got 2 males and a female. They've seen us. They don't look stressed at all. Huge bull Nyala, that in actual fact. The one there at the end. Alright, so no leopard. It seems like they just got a fright. It could have been a jackal, it could have been a serval or a caracal. They will react to that. But doesn't look like anything on the predator, the big predator side. We are going to stick around here and see if they can give us any more clues. Yeah, this female just coming through to watch us now. So unfortunately nothing exciting. Blissfully unaware of us, we're standing here, Viam and I. For those antelope, they'd be looking directly into the sun, which is why they can't see us. And what we're going to do is we're just going to wait here, and they'll probably come walking straight past us at some point, and not too far away, which will give me some time to finish your question, Kathy. So this armband here allows an anti-poaching patrol to distinguish me from someone who shouldn't be walking around in the bush. It's just a visual cue. The bush here has anti-poaching patrols. We don't know where they are or where they're stationed. They could be anywhere, and it's for them hiding away and trying to find poachers, for them to see that because I'm carrying a rifle and because we've got backpacks on and we work in the bush on foot, but I'm not a rhino poacher. It's just one of those things. That I have to be registered with the Sabi Sands. They know my face, and yeah, one of those things. As to how much experience I've got 17 years of working in this area and working as a field guide. And most of that I've been based here in the Sabi Sands and the Kruger National Park in actual fact, with a couple of years, just 1 year spent in the Waterberg, which is near the northeast of the country, close to Botswana, a very mountainous part of the country, and something that I enjoyed tremendously. All right. Right, so I think myself and Viam are going to snoop around here a little bit and see what caused those Nyala to give the bark. I don't think it's anything, hopefully it's just something small, maybe a jackal. We're going to be taking it easy, and while we're doing that, James has just arrived at Cheetah Plains for you. See you just now.
Welcome to Cheetah Plains, everybody. As you can see, it is, well, pretty much exactly the same as Djuma is. We're not too far from Djuma, only about 4 kilometers as the crow flies. I'm driving into the rising sun, so if you see an elephant, I might well drive up its bottom by mistake, because the sun is very bright in my eyes. We are heading towards 3 in a row pan, trifecta water, and we'll see if we can't find quarantine there quickly for Chris Rogue and all his fans, and then we'll head down towards the clearings and off to the eastern boundary and see if we can't find tracks of Inkanieni, where Samwise left her yesterday evening. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to see her babies. That would be wonderful. Does anyone know how old they are? I'm not sure how old they are. I thought they were about 5 months. Maybe even 6 months. Try it there, Brian. Very aggressive stick. They are indeed 5 months. I've never driven this road at Cheetah Plains. This one is called Old Djuma Dam Road. Sorry, Ravi, my ear is extremely itchy. I think your question is about disease and how it is that animals cope with new strains of disease out here. Is that correct, Rebecca? Rebecca! Ah, Ravi, okay, I got it now. Ravi, you're in New York, obviously, you're always in New York, and you want to know about new strains of diseases. So animals have evolved to deal with diseases out here, and diseases, of course, are constantly evolving themselves. And how do animals, deal with the constantly evolving suite of disease? Well, sometimes they don't, and it's a good question because yes, bacteria, viruses, all sorts of pathogens constantly evolving at a much greater rate than, say, here, impala or lions are, because of course their lifespan is so much shorter. And so the speciation, or the difference in species and the changes, will be that much faster for a bacteria or a virus. Now, how they cope with that is that they are constantly looking for they're constantly looking for mates with different resistance. It's one of the major selection points with mammals. When they select a mate, one of the biggest things they look for, and it's totally unconscious, and we do it even as humans, one of the biggest things they look for is a resistance to parasites. Now, you would be amazed at how many parasites and pathogens your body is currently fighting off as we speak. And because of that, there's this constant pressure to try and fight off disease. And when we seek out a mate, one of the things we select for, and it's something that you can actually sense in your nose when you smell somebody, and it's the same for animals out here, you select a mate that hopefully has a totally different suite of parasite resistance to your own. And in so doing, you produce an offspring that has both of your parasite resistance suites. So that's one of the ways that we cope with differing parasites. Of course, also our immune systems learn. They're a bit like an artificial intelligence as well, where our immune systems will learn something that is foreign. So it's not necessarily that they have to be, that your immune system has to know or understand. Here's a little southern black tit, sitting beautifully for us. Oh, you silly bird. Let's just stop and listen for a while I finish this discussion, because I think it's an interesting one. So Ravi, where was I? I've completely lost my train of thought. Oh yes. So an immune system is like an artificial intelligence, where you're not kind of programmed in to be like an antivirus, for example, where you have to be programmed into a certain number of viruses, and if a new one comes along, unless the virus database is updated, then it won't. Your immune system won't defend you against that virus. Much rather, the immune system is programmed to get hold of anything that seems foreign. And so when new parasites and new bacteria which are recently evolved occur, so the body is still able to cope with them normally. But often, of course, we get things like what we call drug-resistant TB, and in South Africa, tuberculosis is still a major issue. And because of the amount of drugs that we've used to treat tuberculosis, the bacteria are constantly evolving in order to avoid the effects of the drugs, which means that we get constant new strains of tuberculosis, and it becomes more and more difficult to deal with those. As usual from Ravi, a very good question. I hope one to which I've given a relatively decent answer. I think there are certainly elements of what I've said that occur out here. I've no doubt there are a whole lot more, because, as I say, diseases out here do evolve at an astonishingly fast rate compared with our own ability to change and adapt as a species. That's simply because our lifespan is much longer than that of a bacteria. Eileen says, Go and find your spouse or significant other and tell them that you chose them for their resistance to parasites. I've said this before, everyone, but and some of you have said you know what I mean, and some of you have said I'm talking rubbish. But some people just smell right to you, and some people just smell wrong. That's not to say they smell bad; they just don't smell right. And people who smell right to you, if you read up about these things, often they smell right to you because their parasite load or their resistance is different. And so it seems like a good idea to your body to make offspring with them. I think let's stop there before I get myself into more trouble. There is a male impala rushing off towards the tower from which we are trying to broadcast this wonderful signal to you. Sorry, 1 second here. Desert Eagle, you've asked a question. Fortunately, it was drowned out by someone waffling on the Game Drive channel. Desert Eagle, I'm going to ask you a question again from Rebecca. Desert Eagle, you say you've heard there's a parasite that can turn a snail into a zombie. Desert Eagle, I have not heard of the parasite that is able to create the zombie snail. I'd love to know more about that. Actually, it sounds quite fascinating. Have you heard of that, Brian?
I haven't.
The zombie snail attack of 2017 sounds absolutely terrifying, especially when you consider the size of a giant African land snail out here. You know, sort of almost half a foot across, some of them. I'd hate to find an army of zombie snails marching across the plains. Here we go. It's a parasitic worm called green-banded broodsack. But how that then creates a zombified snail, I'm not sure. It sounds fascinating. Thank you, Desert Eagle. I will find out. That's wonderful. I've just... Oh, I see. Okay, so apparently it affects the nervous system of the snail, so that it becomes almost suicidal, and allows, I think, birds to catch it or something like that. I'm struggling with the communications from the final control. But what it doesn't do is raise the snail from the dead and have it walking sort of in a zombified manner and attacking other snails or indeed other organisms and turning them too into zombies. I just had a sort of picture in my mind of this army of 10,000 snails marching across the Cheetah plains very slowly, growling. What is that noise they make, Brian? Exactly. An army of 10,000 giant land snails coming across the plains going, but very, very slowly indeed. Thank you, Desert Eagle. Now, Chelsea, you're in Utah and you ask a very salient question about other species and species that affect other species. And are there any species in the Sabi sands whose numbers are negatively affecting others because there are too many of them? Chelsea, that's a very interesting one, and it's actually got quite a deep and long-winded answer, which I would attempt to give you while we drive through here, not looking at very much. The numbers of every species will affect the numbers of every other species inevitably, to a greater or lesser extent. If we take, for example, kudu and nyala, if there are very many kudu, it's going to reduce the amount of food that there is for the nyala to eat, and vice versa. if there are very many elephants, that's going to reduce the amount that just about every other herbivore has to eat, because elephants, of course, are a keystone species and they eat a huge amount of vegetation. So, absolutely, here's this extremely odd situation here. Brian, you remember this?
I do.
There's a hose in the top of this tree, which is fairly inexplicable. Not really sure why there is water in the hose in the top of this tree. Anyway, you know, you see odd things all over the place, and I guess that's just one of them. So, Chelsea, to carry on with that discussion, there are no exotic species out here that are affecting negatively the presence of other species. All of these sort of mammal species here are native to the area, but through the provision of artificial water, which humans have done in this area probably for the last 30 or 40 years, it's created a situation where the population of impala has exploded. This tree is too precious for words. Is it not lovely, Brian? It is, of course, the sjambok pod, or Cassia abbreviata, and I just want to quickly have a look at it. We will get on with our leopard searching very shortly. So, Chelsea, the impala, which are highly effective grazing competitors, yes, they have definitely affected the presence of other species, sable and roan and Sabi. They have all been, their numbers have been reduced through the presence of so many impala. Great question. Let's have a look-see. Sometimes it's just a good idea to give a tree a bit of a hug. What I was hoping to find a pod here to show you why it's called the sjambok pod or Cassia abbreviata, but I don't see any. And it is, of course, growing on a termitaria, a termite mound, and the termite mound provides it with a great deal of nutrition. Brian, my audio is still okay, is it?
Still 100%.
And of course, one of the great joys of living out here is climbing trees. And to be brutally honest with you, the main reason I wanted to stop here was to climb into this tree. It is just so very nice. I can't see any leopards up here though, everyone, so I'll come back down and we can continue with our safari. But you will take the camera off me if I start to fall, won't you?
Of course.
Yes. That's very kind of you. That was particularly inelegant.
Good dismount. Good dismount.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. My legs, you can see, everyone, have recovered from the exertions of the touch rugby a few days ago. A wonderful tree. One would expect to find things living in there. Fairies, perhaps, hobbits, leopards. Didn't find any. You'll also notice, everyone, that I've changed my headdress very subtly without you having to see my bald spot shining into the lens. On we go. Sandy, just sort of following on from the topic that we were talking about there with Chelsea, you want to know if we provide water for the animals during drought times. We do. Well, I mean, water is provided by default because there's a lot of pumped water here. There's a lot of pumped water in the Sabi sands. So yes, during drought times, I suppose more water is provided. And you say, basically, I think your question is, will a drought not weed out weaker animals? Sorry, Becca, I can't hear you. You're crackling. Yes. So you want to weed out animals, and Yeah, drought will certainly weed out weak animals. It'll weed out animals that are diseased, that have a weaker immune system. Animals will become much more susceptible to disease, of course, during drought and hard nutritional times. And so those that are not genetically predisposed to being able to resist a whole lot of disease will shake off this mortal coil, and their genetic legacy will stop there. All right, we're going to move on a little bit quicker. Steph's got something interesting to show you back on Djuma.
Showing you our version of a bush spa, and the noisy Egyptian geese in the background over there. Just it's a pair of them that are busy performing while we have decided to come into this little pan that's in the middle of the bush over here. It's a secret little place. There's no roads close to this pan, and it's actually quite big for a muddy bush pan. I must be quite honest with you. It's actually it's nice to see. And then we walked out onto the mud here, and to be honest, it's quite treacherous. You can see that there's a buffalo that's been walking in here, and the buffalo is sunk actually hock deep. You've got these. This is where the buffalo was. That's where the hoof went in. That's the back hoof went into the mud there. There's the two dew claws over there, and it's still just off to our left hand side. And that's where the buffalo lay.
Beefalo. Sorry about the loss of signal there with Steph. That bush backpack, well, it's actually been extremely reliable. But I don't know why it lost signal there. Here's a group of, well, it's a breeding herd of buffalo, really. It sounds a bit ridiculous saying that about this herd. Oh, listen. Shut up, bird. There's some kudu or some nyala alarm calling. A long way from here, though. I think they're probably north of the boundary. No, they're not. They're in this block here. Did you hear that? Oh! Let's turn around quickly and go and look. They're straight through here. Let's leave these I say ridiculous breeding herd because there are, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. Males, females, and a very little calf. Let's go through here. I don't know if you could hear them, the kudu going, bah! Bah! You can still hear them. Let's just have another listen. They won't keep alarm calling in the same way that impala will. Yeah, still there. So we need to move quite quickly. Hold on, everyone. Now, an alarm call, in case you're wondering, is the noise that an animal will make when it sees something that might want to eat it. In this case, a kudu or a nyala, but I think it's probably a kudu given the habitat. I'm going to drive to basically where I thought I heard it, which is pretty much around where that tree was. Right, we're going to switch off here. Come on, call again. Come.
Yep.
Straight out. Still quite a long way in front there. Ryan's got the... Still got a soft sound. Alright, let's quickly go back to Steph. We'll try and follow up on whatever these kudu are shouting at.
Linky. Well, now we know the reason for this health spa being close by. It's because of this little grove of tamboti trees that we're in at the moment. And I don't know if you can see, VM can show you how much elephant dung is actually around here. And this is obviously a very shady spot, close to a mud wallow. And the elephants come and have a bath, or actually any animal, buffalo, as we were watching with those tracks before you lost us, buffalo, elephant, warthog, I'm sure any number of animal would come through, have a mud bath, and then come under this beautiful canopy, this deep shade of this tree, and come and give themselves a scratch here and spend the afternoon in relative comfort. You can see how over the years the elephants' bellies and sides have polished this tamboti tree to a near shine. Have a look there. This is a place actually that I've visited from time to time. The first time I came through this place was with Scott when we were actually trialing the bushwalk. And we spent much time here, in actual fact, sitting on this very stump, just contemplating this glade. I find myself returning here from time to time. It's just such a peaceful place. There's just such a sense of calmness here. I mean, it's quite possible that that pan and this riverbed and this tree and its shade has been used for a century or more. This particular tamboti tree has been damaged when it was very young, and it's coppiced. So this is one tree that has 4 stems, and the tree base itself is a very, very thick tamboti. A tamboti with a base that thick is generally in the region of 400 to 600 years old. You might find that this grove has been used for hundreds of years then. Obviously the tree needed to get big enough to produce this fine shade before it would have been an option, but maybe that's the sense of well-being that I'm getting here, is this grove that we're so privileged to be close to and can visit. We've got a request that has come through. Teresa in Virginia Beach has wanted to know if I can find her a baboon tail. Teresa, from where I am over here, that's going to be difficult. Baboon tail plants grow further up the slope, and we are very, very close to the bottom of the slope at the moment. But I'll keep my eye open, definitely, as we go back up the other side of this drainage line, and we'll see what we can find for you. But coming back to this grove, we're going to try and thread our way through it. It's made up of a couple of trees, as you can see. And these herds of elephant would come through here and spend their time here in the afternoons. As you can see, this elephant, probably a youngster, has done some damage. Amazing how strong it is. I mean, this tamboti wood itself is one of the African hardwoods we have out here. It's got this most delightful smell. It's very similar to sandalwood or to cedar, the smell itself. And what you can do is you can actually take slivers of this wood and you can put it into your clothes, the clothes that you fold up and store for the winter that have insects in that come and eat them, fish moths and things like that. Slivers of this wood placed between the layers of clothes will actually deter those little fish moths from coming in. You can see where elephant has dug his tusk into this tree. Probably a youngster. The elephant has dug it into the tree and then levered up a piece of bark. Naughty boy or girl. Alright, let's carry on with this game path. Oh, here we go. We can even see where elephant have been. You can see where elephant have been lying down here. You can see here where the elephant have been standing. So what's been happening here is an elephant's been using his trunk to scoop up bits and pieces of sand. Here's the foot of the elephant is right here. This big dish-shaped foot with all these venation on the bottom is like a cracked heel. It's where the elephant was standing while he was busy giving himself a dust bath. And then this marking that we're seeing here is where his trunk would have been, and he would have scooped up some sand with his trunk, picked it up with his nose, and then thrown or dusted himself with that sand. And he looked like this elephant has stood here at least, and he's done it for quite some time. Right now, Deborah has asked me if you can use the wood of the tamboti like you do for the cedar, and you use it in decorative furniture, jewelry boxes, etc. And absolutely, one of the reasons why this tree is quite rare in the bush or outside of protected areas like this is because it's been chopped down to be used in the furniture making industry without reserve for many, many years. In actual fact, Mozambique had the largest groves of tamboti trees in the world, and for quite some time during the Civil War, war chests were furnished with money generated from the sale of tamboti tree hardwood. As sad as that is, it is a reality, very expensive. Today, you can trade in tamboti, you can buy it, but you have to do it under license, unfortunately. Alright, let's carry on down here, Vim. It's getting quite thick here, so what I want to try and do is I think I'm going to try and wind my way through these trees and head down into the actual drainage line itself, which should be a little bit more open. Good morning, Peggy. I'm glad that you're concerned for our safety and that you do enjoy the bushwalks. To answer your question, yes, bushwalks are dangerous, and you have to definitely keep your wits about you and keep your senses open. But am I worried about wild dogs on a bushwalk? Not really, no. I've been lucky enough to encounter wild dogs on foot before and had them quite close to us, and we had no noticeable threat coming from the dogs to us. Something that I am concerned of in an area like this would be buffalo. Definitely, those cranky male buffalo that we see all the time from the vehicles and try and avoid on foot if we can. And then elephant, of course. Elephant are notoriously skittish and quite nervous of people in thick bush like this. So when Viam and I are walking through the bush, we're taking a couple of steps, we're listening, we're taking some more steps, we're listening, and we're taking noises, cracking branches, we're taking oxpeckers, all those little noises into account when we're deciding on where we're going. But right now, not too much. We've been standing around this area now for a good 10 or 15 minutes, and I don't hear anything. Doesn't mean there's anything here, but I don't hear anything. I feel pretty confident that we could probably walk down into this drainage line, which is what I'd like to do. And another question about our safety, and this time from Brenda, and it's about snakes and how often we see snakes, and are all the snakes that we have here poisonous? Brenda, we don't see snakes very often. They're actually quite uncommon to see while we're on bushwalk, and that's because I'm not really looking at my feet. I'm busy scanning the bushes around us, and while we're walking, we're creating vibrations, and the snakes that would be in our path are feeling these vibrations, getting off of our pathway and going underneath bushes where they're quite camouflaged and difficult to see. And most snakes are not active at this time of the morning. Quite cold. Snakes are cold-blooded, and they need to heat up. They need to generate metabolic heat from the environment before they get moving. That's not to say that you won't find nighttime snakes this time of the day, but daytime snakes, things like mambas, for instance, which would be a problem for us, they only get going a little bit later in the morning. And then to answer the second part of your question, the one concerning are all snakes poisonous, and absolutely not. By far the vast majority of snakes that we encounter out here or that occur here are not venomous, are not poisonous whatsoever, and don't have any threat to us. There are a few. There's a couple of cobra species that live out here. We've got a couple of adder species out here, and there are the mambas, of course, and then one or two other exceptions. The boomslang and the vine snake are exceptions to that as well. So less than 10, less than a dozen snakes out here are of medical importance or of significance to us out here. I do have a rule of thumb though, I don't pick up snakes if I don't know exactly what it is. And it's a good thing to do that. It's a good thing to cultivate there. And you avoid being bitten, which a few of my colleagues have been. Not taking care. James has an update on his chase. So I think it would be a good idea to go through to James and go and hear what he's been doing. He's been chasing around the bush after some alarm calls, and hopefully he's got something interesting for you. Right, and what I saw here was on this piece of grass, and you'll notice that there's an anomaly on this piece of grass. You can see there, it's this indistinct globule of brown stuff. Initially I thought it was just a piece of dung that had been dropped off or caught on the grass on the way past as it was being delivered from animal to ground. But then I realized that there is no dung around here. When I let the stem go, there is no dung here. And when I look around, there is no dung anywhere. And that means that what we are looking at here, and I'm about to confirm it with my nose, and please excuse this if it seems a bit off-putting, but this is just the way you have to do it. There's a slight musty odor, and that confirms it for me. That is the pasting of a hyena. So that is the anal paste of a spotted hyena. Liam's looking at me with horror in his face. The fact that I want to put my nose anywhere close to the anal paste of a hyena, but it's a glandular secretion. It's got nothing to do with their digestive tract, apart from the fact that it comes out the same aperture. And what the hyena would have done is walk down this game path, and it would have squatted over this grass stem, would have dragged it through its back legs. Let me see if I can do it for you. Dragged it through its back legs, similar to this. Exuded a pouch that comes out of its bum. Inside there would have been a glandular globule waiting to be released, and he would have gone down on his haunches and walked over the grass and carried on going. And what that does is it allows for other hyena in the area to know exactly what hyena was here and when that hyena was here. Obviously hyenas are predominantly scavengers, as well as being pretty good hunters, but predominantly scavengers. And what this pasting allows to do is not only see, but so and so from our clan was here, or so and so from another clan was here, but also how long ago that clan member was here, so that their scavenging efforts are much more, I've lost the words to be quite honest, but that they don't cover a small area, that they're a little bit more dispersed. There we go, so widely dispersed. And that pasting there it might as well be an essay that they leave here to say, I was here, this is when I was last year, there's nothing in this area, or there was something in this area. So, anal pasting of hyena, one of the very few that you find out here away from the dens. James seems to be ready to accept you right now. We've gotten over the gremlin in our final control. We're going to send you through to him.
We just came into this, we found the kudu, everybody, and we found that they were still shouting, and they were shouting towards the middle of this block. We drove to where our tower is, which is in the middle of the block to the left of us, but I mean, we didn't find any tracks or anything. So whatever it was that caused the consternation in those kudu, they were looking to the south and to the east, or west, sorry, and that's back towards 3 in a row pan here. So we've come back here to have a look. It's impossible to say what they were shouting at. Could have been cheetah, could have been leopard, could have been lion. But this is the kind of direction that they were looking when they were shouting. So we'll just come to the top here. If it is something like a leopard walking through the bush, or a lion or a cheetah, you know, the birds will kind of follow it. You'll hear these patterns of bird alarm calling. And it was sort of in this direction that they were looking. It'd be worth just having a stop here. There's an impala, same chap we saw earlier. He looks pretty relaxed. So let's just have a listen. See if we can pick up on some birds calling. Or maybe more kudu. We found the kudu and they were staring, they were still alarm calling. No tracks of a predator. Went to that pole in the middle of this block. Didn't find anything on the way there or out. So whatever is causing the consternation in those kudu, I think is probably still in this block. And I don't want to sit here for too long while it's moving, because it could cross out at any stage. It could also be heading back towards that pan where we were, towards those buffalo, especially if it's cheetah. If it's those two male cheetah, they often walk a sort of route down through into the clearings and down towards the Mala Mala boundary. But as is so often the case with these things, the expectation slightly outdoes the actual find. Because sometimes there isn't a find. Anyway, let's go and do this loop again. I mean, if we don't find anything, we're going to find ourselves back at 3 in a row pan, because it is a kind of focal point for quarantine. The cheetah have been seen there. The lions have been seen there very often. The other thing with cheetah, and this is an interesting one, is that they don't use roads. They don't use roads in the same way that leopards and lions will. So if it was a lion or a leopard that those kudu were alarm calling at, it's highly likely that you would have found at least a section of road, perhaps leading off onto a game path, where, you know, their tracks would have gone. Especially a soft road like this, you know, you can see it's very sandy. But with the cheetah, because they're trying so desperately to avoid the other predators, they will often avoid a road completely, and, you know, they'll just step lightly across it and off they'll carry on into the bush. And I've noticed that with them, and so this is what making me think that it is maybe those two male cheetah. Just keep an eye out here. Let's stop here and just have a listen. Katrina, a very good question, of course. Why don't we hear lion or impala, antelope, birds alarm calling at hyenas in the same way that we do when they see leopards, for example? Katrina, the answer is simply because the hyenas are not nearly as fast as any of the other predators, and so a hyena is just not a huge threat on his own to an impala herd. It's much the same way as an impala herd doesn't alarm call at wild dogs. They alarm call at animals for a very specific reason, and that's to say to the animal that's stalking them, I see you, and I'm going to watch you. Because once something like a leopard or a lion knows that the impala have seen it, they'll give up on the hunt and go away. With a hyena or a wild dog, the hyena or a wild dog, their strategy is so just so brazen. You know, they'll run out into a clearing and just try and chase something down. So there's no point in them being alarmed at. And I think birds, you know, hyenas, I guess, will eat a bird, but they can't climb. So it's highly unlikely that they would ever be able to catch too many birds. And I think they're just not a real threat to birds, whereas a leopard is, little and large. I'm going back past this tree with its strange hose pipe. But if we can find no tracks crossing this road, then I don't know, I'm going to be extremely confused. Could have been heading down this way towards the big clearings there, but I just feel like we would have seen some tracks. There's the road towards our tower, which we came out on. And that tower, of course, is what broadcasts the signal to you from Cheetah Plains all the way here. There's our hosepipe tree. Ellen, you say maybe that hose was put in the tree to stop elephants and that sort of thing getting at it. Yeah, I think it probably was. I just don't know what it's there for. You know, is it there to make a pan? Is it there to wet the road slightly? I don't know. Now, the buffalo we saw, everyone, over there. That's where we were sitting. When we started chasing the kudu, we heard them alarm calling off to the left-hand side there. And they were looking sort of this direction and sort of towards the south of the block. So I don't know. This is deeply irksome. I see no tracks coming to and fro. Maybe it was something completely, you know, kind of to the north of them, and we can't go much further north than this. I struggle to believe that we would have missed the tracks going across this road because it is very sandy. Let's just go and have one more look at that pan. Then I think we'll go into the clearings and come around just in case we haven't missed the tracks. I just don't think that we would have. And then maybe whatever it is will be at 3 in a row pan. I'm going to drive relatively quickly, everyone. Just keep an eye out here. Not a track in sight. This really does make me think perhaps this is a leopard. And no, not a leopard, a cheetah. Anyway. We might be lucky, we might be lucky. Alright, let's head back across the steppe while we look for the tracks. It'll give us another 10 minutes or so.
Alright, now you're back with us. While James continues his search for whatever is making those kudu so upset. From the sounds of things, he's hot on the trail over there. Just needs some time to unravel the puzzle. Now, myself and VM have crossed through that drainage line opposite to where you were with us, where we were standing in that Tamboti Grove and where we saw that fantastic ahina pasting on the stick. We are now walking along the drainage line here. A lot of buffalo tracks in the area. I'm getting this like nervous flutter in my belly, which is just one of those things you just got to learn how to trust. So I'm quite vigilant at the moment. But anyway, while we are here and just listening to the bush in front of us, it gives us some time to literally just calm down, slow things down, and for us to listen to what's going on in front of us. No oxpeckers around. I don't know why it's giving. There's nothing that's really untoward. But in any case, we're going to carry on going. You're going to join us while we walk through here. We're going to see if we can find you. What's that? Is that another alarm call? We've got some noise around us here. No, no alarm calls. Looks like the bush is full of stuff happening here today. Nice area this. Once again, we're quite far away from any road at the moment. I'd say probably the closest road that we've got is around about 400 or 500 yards from where we are now. This is a white berry from a white berry bush, and quite tasty, I must be honest with you. Some bush tucker. We've been privileged enough to have late season rains here and a very dry start to the beginning of the year. And so what happened is some of these trees have only started to give fruit off now, which is nice. Usually you don't have a lot of fruit this time of the year, and now we have. And you might think that the bush is full of food to eat, but it isn't actually. You've really got to know where to find food and how to catch food to survive out here. It's much easier just to pack right and bring enough snacks and things. I carry around some snacks for VM in my bag, which is a good thing because he's a hungry young lad. He's a growing young lad, I should say, that needs to get some food. But we are standing next to two things that do give food. One was this white berry bush, which you can have. The other one is this leadwood. Now, leadwood, as some of you might recall, is a combretum and therefore has a very hard wood. But unlike the other combretums, leadwood has a very gummy, resin that sometimes exudes from it. You can create a sap run if you injure the plant. In other words, if you cut a small groove into its bark, you can create a sap run, but it just goes a bit slow. So it's always easiest to walk through a grove of leadwood like this and have a look for an injury from an elephant or from a buffalo that's rubbed. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is I'm looking in here to see if I can find some of this resin. The resin itself is very high in sugar. And sugar, as with fat, is highly prized by animals out here, and humans have learned how to exploit it. So this is like one of those, it's not as high in sugar as what, say, honey is, but definitely one of those things that you can walk through the bush, look for the sap of a leadwood, and then you can eat it. It gives you a bit of a sugar high. Not much. Honey is always better. And you'll find here where you do find a tree with a hive in, quite often in the Kruger National Park, especially in the baobabs, which occur a little bit further north of where we are. You find that cavities where bees have made nests quite often have peg holes from the bushmen or the sand people that used to live here many, many years ago, where they used to peg hardwood pegs into the bark and go up, and axe marks where they chopped open these beehives. And we're looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of years worth of cultivation of wild honey out here in that fashion. I want to see